I'm going to ask you while we're doing this. Here is Wiley Britton's The Union Brigade in the Civil War, and we happen to have a copy of it here. And how good a resource is the Britton book for any of us out here to read? Is it still worthwhile getting into?
I think so. It's very good. You're getting the view of a white soldier who fought alongside the Indian Brigade, and obviously he spent all of his time writing a book on it. He viewed that as a very important component of the Union Army west of the Mississippi. Mm-hmm. An interesting component of it.
So it's still worthwhile.
It is.
Getting into.
There was a woman who wrote a trilogy on the Indian Territory in the Civil War. Yes.
Yes, if we had that. I know where it was about a year ago up there, but unfortunately someone did take it to use it. We couldn't get it back for this. Here is Lewis Downing. There were so many interesting characters that come forth in your book that are generally probably not known about. Some maybe, some not. Now we're talking about how the blacks and Indians and whites did come together, and here's one of those certainly that helped lead that as well. Tell us a little bit about Downing.
Well, Downing was one of the Cherokee leaders, and as a remarkable thing happens in the Cherokee Nation, actually remarkable things are happening all over the Indian Territory. One of the things in the Cherokee Nation was that I mentioned that Chief John Ross had sort of gone along with secession nominally, so that on the side he was also organizing Unionists. And when the Union Army comes into the Cherokee Nation, the official Cherokee Regiment, of which Downing is an officer, crosses the line and goes and joins the Union Army. This is a Confederate unit that essentially changes sides. That's one of the few instances I can think of where that was, where you could expect that to take place.
We actually had a Confederate regiment from here in Illinois, down in Little Egypt, down near Cairo.
That's right.
Which is further south than Richmond, and it was like almost a southern border state down there.
A lot of butternuts.
A lot of butternuts down there. I'm going to ask you about someone else too, because he's interesting to me personally. When I started to read this, a name popped out. I said, wait a minute, there just about 2 miles from me is an orchard that sells all sorts of flowers and plants, and it's called Beeson's. And John Beeson in your book is one of the characters that caught my eye, a British-born Illinois farmer who radicalized, or maybe was from Britain already, and was thrown out by his neighbors and went a little bit further west. The farm and some of the Beeson descendants are still there, farming and selling fruit, etc. So tell us, please, about John Beeson. I think they're going to be watching as well. One of them is in Cambodia.
Well, Beeson is a very interesting man. I don't know nearly as much about him as I would like to, although I've read everything by him or about him that I've been able to get my hands on. Beeson comes up as one of the great national spokesmen for Indian reforms and a Republican leader. He lives in Oregon at a time that the Indian Wars are breaking out there in the 1850s, and he basically takes people from the tribe that is involved in these wars and is going on national tours back east to sort of present them to people. And they go to the Congress at one point in the middle of the Civil War. The Congress, the space in which the House of Representatives is meeting, winds up being occupied by a mass protest meeting over Indian rights that's taking place. Beeson was a spiritualist. That's probably one of the most important things to note about him. The spiritualists were incredibly radical egalitarians through all of this. And they seem to, that's an interesting subject for another book, but they seem to have a hand in just about everything. The women's rights movements, the abolitionist movements, the prominent people in the land reform movement, the Waddles at Utopia, Ohio, all of these folks were spiritualists. Table rappers.
Yeah, John Waddles and Augustus Waddles from Ohio you speak about as well. And they all did team up out in the territory?
They did. There's an odd. I think it was almost in the case of the Kansas territory. It was almost as though people were being driven together.